Section 3.4.19. The following graph is an ogive of a standardized test scores. The vertical axis in an ogive is the cumulative relative frequency and can also be interpreted as a percentile. We're going to complete parts A through C. In part A, we want to find and interpret the percentile rank of a test score with a value of 100. So if we take a look on the graph here, this is where 100 is located. And that is the center of that data. It's in between 50 and 150. Okay, now recall that the kth percentile, denoted P subscript K, of a set of data is a value such that K% of the observations are less than or equal to the value. Now, the test score of 100 corresponds to the 50th percentile rank. The reason why this is the 50th percentile, because this is the middle number. So this represents the mean. And so therefore, this means that 50% of test scores are less than or equal to a test score with a value of 100. Now in part B, we want to find and interpret the percentile rank of a test score with a value of 130. So here I'm going to locate the value of 130. Okay, now recall that our mean is 100. So we need to look at this and say, okay, well, what do we know about this graph, or is there any information that we can take from this graph? Well, we can see here that 10 represents the standard deviation, and then we go through another 10, which is another 10, and then another 10. Okay, so if we think about the empirical rule, then that means we are 3 standard deviations away from the mean. And if you recall, when you're 3 standard deviations away from the mean, that is 95% of the data. And so therefore, a test score of 130 corresponds to the 95th percentile rank. So this means that 95% of test scores are less than or equal to a test score of a value of 130. Now for part C, it says what score corresponds to the 5th percentile. And the 5th percentile is going to correspond to a test score of 70. And the reason why, again, is because recall that we have our mean at 100. Okay, so we're going to go 1 standard deviation below the mean, another standard deviation below the mean, and the 3rd standard deviation. So therefore, this is going to then represent at 70 would be the 5th percentile, because it is 3 standard deviations below the mean, and therefore the 5th percentile corresponds to a test score of 70.